Good morning, everybody. Brian Neubert here from GoldandBlack.com. Here with your GoldandBlack.com Purdue Basketball Daily. Well on its way to becoming your GoldandBlack.com Purdue Basketball bi-weekly at this point. But as you know, we're doing this little video series here in the preseason and theoretically throughout the season just to be a little bit more productive, a little bit more interesting maybe. And a little more engaging. So today's topic, randomly picked out as I rolled out of bed this morning, was simply to expand on something I've written about kind of all off season. The fact that I think Purdue is going to be a better basketball team than it was last season. That is a mouthful when you consider the fact that, Purdue was number one in the country. At one point last season, they won the Big Ten by 3 games. They were a number one seed. They won the PK 85. Obviously, the margins for improvement when you do that much are pretty narrow theoretically. But I think this is a little bit of a different deal. Purdue's season this year in terms of the body of work from a year ago versus the threshold for improvement the following year. I do think Purdue has ample room to grow, and I think a lot of it lies in experience. I think, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer, what Purdue asked of those guys last season was a lot, and they more than delivered, being true freshmen right away, not only in the Big Ten, not only in college basketball at a high level, but on a great team. Purdue's success last year was obviously directly tied to Zach-Ede's development into the best player in the country. But none of it would have been possible without Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer showing up and being ready to be guys right away. And I think now both of them, both of them have experience. Both of them are theoretically more conditioned for a full season than they were last year. And I think you're going to see a jump from both of those guys. I think Braden Smith becomes one of the best players in the Big Ten. I think Fletcher Loyer takes a huge jump in terms of his shooting and his just overall game. I think that the best is very much yet to come for both of those guys, starting now. And I think that is where so much of Purdue's improvement is centralized. But also I think that, you can't shoot any worse than you did last season. Purdue was like a sub 33% shooting team for the season, 5 of 26 at the wrong time. In March, ended their season more than anything else did. And there's nowhere to go but up in that regard. This is too skilled a team shooting the basketball for that to be its reality. I think it's just absolutely essential. It's normally, most of the time, when you just say, if this team just shoots better, it's going to be better. Normally that's oversimplification, simply because that's so obvious and not as easy as it sounds. But I think Purdue has good shooters who just didn't shoot great last season. But also the composition of their team, I think it's much more important for them than it is for a lot of people, because it's not just about the aggregation of points, but it's about the leveraging of your assets. I think Zach-Ede is a much more effective asset when people around him are helping him by making the shots that he generates for them by drawing 8 defenders when you're only allowed to have 5 people on the floor. Somehow he's able to do that. But also just being able to command respect all over the floor to give him the space he needs. I think that's an absolutely essential component to Purdue's success. I'm not telling you anything groundbreaking here. I'm just telling you that obviously, 3-point shooting is a huge part of Purdue's winning formula here, and they need to leverage it better than they did last season. I think that Fletcher Loyer is going to shoot better than he did last season on similar volume, which is not a small task. If you're shooting that many threes and you're shooting 35, 36, 37%, you're averaging 12, 13, 14, 15 points a game. That's pretty considerable. It's the wings and it's those secondary guys that Purdue has to make sure those guys command respect, because those are the guys that people are most likely to be helping off of. It's going to be up to your four men to stretch the floor. It's going to be up to your Ethan Mortons, your Brian Waddell's, your Miles Colvins, your Camden Heidi's, your Lance Joneses to be credible enough shooting threes on those backside reversals to make sure that nobody's helping into Zach-Edey. I think Purdue's going to be much better at that this year than they were last year. So that's a big area where I think improvement not only does lie, but has to lie. Purdue, to be as good a team as Purdue can be, it has to shoot threes much, much better than it did last season and much more consistently. You can't have that bottoming out game at the wrong time, precisely what ended Purdue's season last year. So I think that matters. I think, an added dose of athleticism really helps Purdue in terms of what they're bringing in Lance Jones, in Miles Colvin when he's ready to play. I think there's going to be a process involved there. In Camden Heidi, it's a very different look. It should theoretically help Purdue in transition. It should theoretically help Purdue from a defensive perspective, provided those guys are ready to defend. So I think that matters. I think having a true secondary ball handler in Lance Jones this year that you didn't really have last year, I think is a big, big deal. I just think having more scoring assets and more proven, capable guys scoring, I think, is a big deal. I think that Braden Smith is really going to look to score more than he did last season. Purdue is demanding that of him. Not just asking that of him, demanding that of him. And I think you're going to see him, change a little bit as a player because of it, produce more as a scorer because of it, put more pressure on defenses as a result of it. I think you're going to see Purdue be a little more formidable in transition, putting even more pressure on opposing defenses. As I said before, I think you're going to shoot a little bit better than you did last season. I think Trey Kaufman-Wren is a guy that can really score. Now, whether he can do it next to Zach-Edey or not, that is something that is going to be, that is something that is left to be proven. I think Purdue can do some different things this year, be a little bit more dynamic. I think last year Zach-Edey just showed up on day one of the season looking like Thanos, and all of a sudden you were kind of obligated to play to your strengths and to post him up as much as physically possible. Whereas here and there too, he and Braden Smith showed this real synergy in pick and roll, and I think that that's something Purdue can probably expand this season. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of a dynamic Zach-Edey this year, slipping handoffs, dive into the basket, working pick and roll, kind of things like that. And I think Purdue's just going to be, I don't want to say a harder team to guard than they were last season, because you try guarding Zach-Edey. They were really difficult to guard last season, and they were really good offensively. They were really efficient offensively, but I think they're going to be a little bit more multifaceted this year. And I think it starts with those two guards, being a little bit more, a little bit better, a little bit more polished, a little bit more ready than they were last season. And they were pretty damn ready last year. So that's a big part of where improvement lies. I think Purdue's just a more experienced team now, too, and I think that really matters. Now, Purdue should be a better basketball team this year. Does that mean they're going to win every single game? Does that mean they're going to win the national championship? No, it just means you're going to be a better basketball team than you were last year. I think they'll be better defensively. I think they'll be just as good rebounding the basketball, and that's something to keep in mind, too, is that Purdue was an elite rebounding team last year, too. And that is something you can hang your hat on every single game. So that's sort of what I got. That was just a long, rambling, meandering word salad there for you on a Thursday morning. But that's what I got. So, hey, the fur is going to start flying here in terms of the season very soon. They've got a scrimmage on Saturday we're going to cover the hell out of on the bye weekend. I'm going to Arkansas next weekend for the exhibition game at Arkansas. So there's really, if you're into this stuff, and if you're not into this stuff and you just sat through 10 and a half minutes of me babbling about things, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But there's no better time, really, to join our site at GoldandBlack.com. You can get your first month for $1, just $1. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. So just wanted to plug that, as always, GoldandBlack.com. So check us out. So thanks a lot, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, theoretically.